Just so everybody's aware, Commissioner Warner's called and he was delayed, so we're about 5 minutes, so we're just going to hold off for 5 minutes to start. We'll go ahead and call to order the December 6th Board of Commissioners regular meeting. A little bit at 6:35. Commissioner Hunt is out of town on vacation, and he has got an excused absence, and Commissioner Warner will be here momentarily. Would you all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Okay, to the agenda, Commissioner Stewart, you would like to make a modification?
Yes, to remove the ordinance granting number 2 under consent agenda off of the consent agenda.
Okay, so,
Onto the regular old business.
okay, so item C2 will become H4, old business.
Thank you.
Any other changes to the agenda? Evening, Jim. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the revised agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. And Jim, as you walked in, what we moved one item off the consent agenda and moved it to old business, okay? Okay, next up, public comments. First up, and in public comments, this is not a public hearing, so public comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we will run this the usual time frame for 25 minutes. First up, Jim King.
My name is Jim King. I live at 3514 Waxhaw Marvin Road, and that's Union County. At your previous meeting on this, I stated several problems with this CUD. It was also stated that I thought Trayton Homes was leaving this area. As of today and as of this moment, no one has proven any of the above facts that I presented to the last meeting to be incorrect. Just wanted to point out how many sections of your UDO you will possibly be breaking if you proceed with this UDO. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've talked to several knowledgeable and experts on planning and zoning, and every single person I've talked to stated that neither the zoning administrator nor our town manager has the authority to ignore a specific and clear part of your UDO. Otherwise, why are we having this meeting tonight? Just let them do it all. Section 16.2.2 of your general requirements, Section A, says, application rezoning to a conditional zoning shall only be considered upon written consent or request of all the owners of the property being considered rezoned. 16.2.2b, a conditional rezoning application shall be filed with the administrator a minimum of 90 days prior to the planning board meeting at which the application is to be heard. So, a letter dated November the 9th would not be in compliance with the above by any means of the imagination. Your planning board presentation, number 10, planning board presentation had several errors, and as of this morning, it looks like there's a new plat showing up with additional corrections on it, which I thought was kind of strange. So what's been, even the plat presented to your planning board had errors in it. 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way to 16 sections. This plat is presented to your planners as a single own, was presented as a single owned 49 piece of land. And that's what your planners looked at, is that this developer, Trayton, owned a whole 49 acres. And that's what they passed this on. Talked to your developer several times, and there's no way with 27 acres that you can get this kind of development on it. With this same development, you need at least 3 to 5 more acres than what's being proposed. And if you don't like all this, look at section 168, 373 of North Carolina General Statutes, and this ought to shake you up. From and after the effective date of a subdivision ordinance that is adopted by the city, No subdivision plat of land within the city's jurisdiction shall be filed or recorded until it has been submitted to and approved by the council or appropriate agent as specified in the subdivision ordinance. Section 168-382 of the North Carolina General Statute. B, property may be placed in the special use district, conditional use district, or conditional district only in response to a petition by the owners of all the property to be included. Conditional and site-specific standards imposed shall be by use to the site to city ordinances. I would suggest strongly, there's a institute of government I hope some of you are familiar with, is the premier authority on North Carolina law. I would suggest strongly before you proceed with this that you call the Institute of Government, and you might want to ask them if you are complying with UDO, and also if this is or is not contract zoning, and I think you're going to be really, really unhappy with the answers you get. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bonnie Rosinko?
My name is Bonnie Rosinko, and I live at 2501 Providence Road South. I'm here to speak about our park. As you know, from the very beginning, I have been against the slicing and dicing of the park and giving away portions of it. I was hoping as a resident and a citizen that we would have a park to go to with our families and not just have a smaller park. And I understand that progress has to come, but it just seems like we had 34 acres, and I know that a couple of years ago we paid over $1 million for it, and it was earmarked for an equestrian and different talks, but then it became the park. And we were all looking forward to it. Then Trayton Home came along, and they started to develop, and then the town of Waxhaw decided that they wanted to go out there and to make sure that they were going to be annexed in, and the wheeling and dealing started. At first, it was 5 acres they were going to take. If they would be annexed into it, they would take 5 acres, and that was okay. We figured 5 acres in the back part would be fine, but it ended up where we were giving they were going to buy 12, give us back 7, but the 7 they were going to give us back was scruff land, and it was unbuildable, so it's not useful for them, so they gave it to us. And plus they gave us a pond that's going to be wedged between houses. And you know darn well that people are not going to go traipsing through houses to be part of that park, per se. Then I went to a meeting that Trayton Homes had down at the Catholic Church, and the gentleman even touted that the lady says, what are your amenities going to be if we buy there? And they said, very blatantly said, well, we have a passive park. We don't need amenities. That is the amenity. And I got to thinking, a passive park? That's our park. So that means that we're going to maintain a park for them. I think it's wrong. The way it's gone, I truthfully, even though I want the park, why don't we just call it off and sell all of it and get our money and buy land somewhere else and let them have it? Because if they're going to move like everyone says they are, they're going to have it zoned the correct way that they want. They're going to end up selling it probably to somebody else, make a profit, and move on. Why not us make the profit? Why don't we just sell it all and forget all this and just let it go? Thank you.
Thank you. John Darcy?
My name is John Darcy. I live at 4709 Rockwood Drive. I am a resident of Eugene County. And I want to talk about the Creighton Homes and the development. I want to know why the city of Waxhaw is so desperate for new development that they're willing to let a developer come in, pick a piece of property, draw it up the way he wants to, and get conditional zoning so he can zone it the way he wants to. And right now, they're still changing the way the zoning is drawn up, the way the plots are laid out up until earlier this week. And we can't give them zoning until they give us definite plans. And now they're moving out of town. They're leaving and going back to Atlanta. So it just comes across as the city of Waxhaw is so desperate to bring in new developments and new developers that they're not paying a whole lot of attention to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ralph McLeod?
My name is Ralph McLeod. I live at 3525 Banyan Way in Providence Estates, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Providence Estates Homeowners Association, of which I am a member. We're concerned for a number of reasons. One, there's a number of homeowners whose properties back up to the property in question where the proposed Trayton home development is planned. At an earlier meeting with Trayton home officials at the Catholic Church, there were a number of questions concerning the buffer between the proposed development and the Providence Estates properties that adjoin the development. Most of the answers we received were very vague as to what was proposed. They couldn't tell us exactly what the buffer would be, if they were going to cut down all the trees or level it all and then plant other trees. It just seemed as if they were still in the planning stage. We're concerned about the impact that such a development will have on the traffic, on the drive time traffic on Waxhaw Marvin Road, with the addition of 71 homes and probably about 160 additional cars each morning and evening, not to mention the additional traffic from the Oak Grove development. My question is, has a traffic study been made? We're concerned about the impact that such a development will have on our schools. Has a study been made on that? Also, the impact on the police department of Waxhaw. Has any consideration been given to that? I share the concern that Mr. King raised about some of the irregularities of the acreage allotted and the open space for the proposed development. Many of these questions and issues have not been adequately addressed or answered. I would like to hear clear and concise response to these questions. I know that we cannot remain static. There's got to be progress. But I'm concerned, just as with the rezoning of the property owned by Mr. Francis on Providence, I think the quality of life and character of our community and those communities that border Waxhaw should be a priority over the developer's desire for profit and that of the town of Waxhaw to increase revenues. Although technically I live in the village of Marvin, I do business and shop in Waxhaw, and our property will be impacted by this development. It's sad to see our beautiful little town rapidly turning into a bedroom community and nothing but strip malls and fast food places up and down Providence Road. I ask that you please give careful consideration to my concerns and also those already expressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Hansen.
My name is Dennis Hanson. I live at 3711 Banyan Way, and my property backs right up to the new development. There's been a lot of talk about what Trayton Homes has planned or not planned or is planning, so I thought I'd speak briefly with my experience with Trayton Homes. Soon after all of the trees started to be cut down and the bulldozers moved in, I started to note topsoil moving into the waterway on my property. I spoke to one of their engineers when they were building the retention pond. They said that they'd look into it and get back to me. I went to the Catholic Church when they made their presentation, and I talked to their representatives about it, and again, they said that they would get back to me. I spoke to the people at the sales office, which is no longer represented, and they told me that they would get back to me. The waterway continues to fill up, and to date, nobody's gotten back to me since that initial construction. So I have doubts as to how much faith you can put into what they say, what they plan, and what they plan on doing. And it seems obvious to all of us that they're already in the process of pulling out, and we have no idea what the replacement people are going to do once the rezoning is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, and it looks like Jim Orange.
Again, my name is Jim Orange. I live at 3005 Bridgewick Road, and I am against the Trayton Homes presentation or request. First of all, town of Waxhaw is looking to put 71 lots and 49 acres, plus, and with the roads, that's like putting a house on top of a house. And next, we're giving them a town park. Now, if I go to visit that town park, the people across the street where I park are going to tell me, hey, you can't park there, this is our park. I've talked to the man a couple months ago, and he said, oh, that's part of our amenities. So, right again, Town of Waxhaw is gonna pay for your amenities, I invite you to come over to Millbridge and pay for mine. You know, I'm dead set against it, and like the fellow that just left, no one's there anymore. I took a ride through there, and no one is there. No one is looking after anything. The sales office is completely closed. Are we now gonna give a Christmas present to someone that's in Atlanta? I'm just dead set against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Settle?
Good evening. Terry Settle, 612 North Providence Street, and I'm here as the president of the Nonprofit Library Association of Waxhaw to extend an invitation to the mayor and board of commissioners to attend a drop-in on Saturday, December the 17th from 10 to 12 at the McDonald House. This drop-in is honoring all of our volunteers and the Waxhaw Library staff. We recently celebrated our 7-year anniversary. We have hit a milestone and finally raised over $100,000 to be used for our new Waxhaw Library, hopefully. We're going to get one. And we just recently gave a $3,000 gift to the Waxhaw branch. So our actual cash on hand is now $99,132. So we hope to see you at our drop-in. Thank you.
Would you repeat the date and time again?
It is Saturday, December 17th, from 10 until 12
Thank you very
at
much.
the McDonald House. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it for public comments. Next up is, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
On to recognition.
All right, I'd like to have Melody Schuler, town clerk, come to the podium for a plaque recognition. Just real quickly, Melody Schuler, town clerk, earned the recognition of Master Municipal Clerk by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. And this is a huge deal because this designation is only awarded to those who complete demanding education requirements and make significant contributions to government and community on a continual basis. And just as a side note, Melody also serves on the board of directors for the North Carolina Municipal Clerks Association for District 8. And in addition to that, she was also recently accepted in Appalachian State University's Master of Public Administration program. So with that, I'd like to present this plaque to Melody and say congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations. You want us to wait 10 seconds so you can take the minutes for that? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, up next, reports. Commissioner Warner?
I have nothing this evening.
Commissioner Stewart? Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Nothing this evening.
Commissioner Burrow?
Just one small thing. The festival with the lights had family members come in from Florida, and they're actually buying a house here in Waxhaw. And when they left, they said, loved it. It was awesome.
Thank-
So thank you all very much. The people that put the festival on, it was great. Thank you very, very much to all of you.
Okay, thank you. 3 items on my side. Number one, tomorrow night, the Regional Transportation Organization is hosting a 3-hour work session where we're actually going to go through a revision of the prioritization schemes that are used for the discretionary funds in hopes that they start to broaden the use of those funds more broadly across the region. They recognize that it needed some work, and this is a good thing. This is This is really an effort to begin to iterate and improve the statutory requirements that are in place from the State House in hopes that we can start to address some of the transportation issues. Along that lines, Commissioner Helms from the county, who was sworn in last night and is now the vice chair, is going to begin to organize the regional towns together to try to begin to address more broadly some solutions around transportation. We can't sit and wait for funding for everything. It can be a combination of a number of things, and we're going to start exploring that in January, and he's committed to that. Second item, there was some confusion created around our UDO schedule, and it unfortunately was miscommunicated in the Union County Weekly, and I know Jason Vick, you're out there somewhere in virtual land in your Union County team, so if you'd like, I'd encourage you to contact the town hall staff to understand what the real schedule is. We are not going to be done with it on December 15th, as was reported in the, you feel relieved, don't you, Lisa? As reported in the Weekly, we are in the final steps of the complete rewrite. It's a rewrite of something that's been around since 2004. We've entered the last phase after approving our comprehensive plan in October, as well as approving a bridge document that actually took the 50 or so policy statements that were scattered in roughly 12 different planning documents and brought those in so we can start to bridge to actionable steps as well. Roughly speaking, every department will be collaborating and reviewing the draft chapters as they come in, which will start hopefully sometime in this month, but really accelerate in January and February. That means engineering, code enforcement, planning, parks and rec, economic development, all will be working together in January and February to review the plan, vet it, make sure it makes sense from their perspective, make sure it makes sense across the board as we integrate it. That will lead to some scenario planning, something that was a step that was skipped in the form-based code, but they will create some test scenarios and begin to test those to make sure that the code really works as intended and uncover hopefully any unintended consequences so we can fix that accordingly. And that will occur late February and in March, probably extend into early April. And with that hard work, probably some luck, the Easter Bunny comes along there somewhere, and hopefully at that point in time we get to some public reviews and discussions in the late April or in May timeframe where we go through all that work and actually get to final approval of that of the UDO. So while yes, we are going to start to receive some of the drafts, there's a lot of work ahead in a very short period of time by all the department heads and the staff, and wanted to make sure that that was clarified because unfortunately it went out through no fault of the Union County Weekly. It just went out that way. Lastly, as Commissioner Burrow said, this past weekend started our holiday festivities that run through December. As it's been described, it was really bringing a Christmas carol to life. This does not happen by chance. It happens because of the dedicated groups of employees that we have that make this lasting contribution to this town. Last night, the board was able to privately thank the employees. Tonight, I want to thank them publicly and thank them out to all the virtual land out on YouTube that are watching this meeting. This team responsibly serves our citizens, our businesses, our visitors on a daily basis, and we couldn't do it without them, obviously. And so in this season of gratitude, I would encourage all of us to maybe just take a moment and really thank the employees for a job well done, a job that they do day in and day out for this town. And for all of us in the room, how about one more round of applause for them? With that,
Okay.
Mr. Wood.
All right, Mayor Maher, members of the board, Ms. Schuler, Mr. Spencer. We've already heard tonight a lot on Trayton Homes, and that will be the focus of my manager's report tonight. and the property exchange agreement with them. So I want to start with that with just a visual. I'm going to go through a lot of information. This kind of, I like visuals. So you got Waxhaw Marvin Road. This is a conceptual, what a conceptual development of the front 10 acres of that property could look like. So you got Waxhaw Marvin Road, you got the Quellen entrance. You would have a proposed entrance to the new development here built by the developer, as well as improvements they would have to make on Waxhaw Marvin Road. In this concept, we would retain the tree-lined driveway. It wouldn't be a driveway anymore, it'd be a tree-lined walkway. Have an internal trail system. Here's the existing pond. You could have a fishing pier, some picnic facilities, playground area, open meadow. So there's just a concept of what could be. And just keep in mind that the town of Waxhaw's Park and Rec master plan, developed by a group of citizens, calls for the development of a 10-acre neighborhood park at exactly this location. And you're welcome to look at the Park and Rec master plan. It's all in there. So this is just a concept in a parking area here. This is a concept of what the development of that 10 acres could look like for a passive neighborhood park. So now I'm going to get into some little bit of the background on this particular 34 acres, and you've heard some of it tonight. In 2012, so we're working on 5 years ago, the board voted to purchase the 34 acres on Waxhaw Marvin Road. The town paid almost $1.4 million for that property. It was then annexed into Waxhaw, and a residential zoning was put on it. There was some discussion about the use of that property for a future park. I had heard the possibility of an equestrian center, as well as there was also some discussion on that use of that site for a public services facility. But really, there were no plans ever developed related to how that property could be developed. So in essence, the park today remains unutilized and inaccessible to the public. It's locked up. You can jump the fence, but you technically be trespassing. But it's locked up and inaccessible to the public. And in addition to that, there currently are no funds in the town's 5-year capital improvement plan to develop this property for anything. The town could choose to allocate funds to develop that property for a park or another purpose, but as of today, in the town's 5-year capital improvement plan, there are no monies set aside to develop that property for any purpose. So that brings us, so the negotiations with the developer were initiated by the town and started, the whole conversation with Trayton Homes started about incentivizing annexation and then moved in the potential property exchange and park development. And the reason it started around incentivizing annexation in the state of North Carolina currently, as of 2007, I believe, there are no more involuntary annexations and everything's voluntary. And at the time, Trayton had no intentions of annexing. So it's viewed as a bad financial situation for the town to have development occur, in essence, in town, but not in the town limits. So one of the town's goals in your comprehensive plan is to incentivize annexation. That's how this whole conversation started.
Yeah, and let's just be clear. This was done under the past board with the view that parcel would be landlocked by housing development that surrounded it from the county.
Right, so you'd have...
That is a matter of record from the past board.
Yeah, you would have 3 sides adjoining that site that would be outside the municipal limits.
Right.
Which is my next bullet. So, and please stop me as we go through this. So that's how those conversations started. And that was probably about a year ago that those really started. It was under under the previous board actually, so it would be a little bit more than a year ago. And both the Board of Commissioners and the Park and Culture Recreation Advisory Board have been aware of these negotiations for some time now. All right, so the exchange agreement itself. So again, just a little history. We received a property exchange offer from Trayton Homes on April 11th, 2016. So this has been going on for some time. The negotiations have been going on back and forth for some time. This is not something that just came up. The Waxhaw Board of Commissioners authorized the development of this property exchange agreement through a resolution that you passed on June 28, 2016. So that authorized staff to move forward with developing a property exchange agreement. And that was done through resolution. There was a public comment session that was held, and that's what came of it. The town of Waxhaw and Trayton Homes, as of earlier this week, yesterday, have now both signed a property exchange agreement for a portion of 34 acres. That does not mean property has exchanged hands. That means we have signed a property exchange agreement. There are additional steps to take place before any exchange of property happens, and if those steps and those requirements aren't met, then exchange will not happen, and we'll get into a little bit of that. And property exchange agreements are authorized by the state of North Carolina under the general statute. So a property exchange is authorized by the state of North Carolina. So this agreement that currently exists, it aligns with board policy in a number of different ways. So in your strategic initiatives for the current year, you have a stated policy of, when feasible, the town will seek financial partnerships with the private sector and other nonprofits, public sector, and other organizations in the community as a means of providing services in the most cost-effective way. So there's nothing in your policies that said under no conditions will we negotiate with any developers or anyone else for any purpose. You don't have a policy that says that. You've got a policy that says the opposite, when you can provide services in the most cost-effective way. In your recently adopted comprehensive plan, developed by members of the community, you have a stated policy in there that we will partner with developers of new communities to leverage public-private participation in the construction of greenways and park facilities. This isn't something that's outside of what your policy calls for. This is consistent with that. And in addition to that, within your comprehensive plan, and this is how this whole arrangement began, you have a policy of incentivizing annexation and working proactively with property owners to annex properties that are surrounded by the corporate limits. So that's consistent with that. And then in your park, recreation, and cultural master plan, also a citizen-based plan, you also have another stated goal of, in essence, having public-private relationships to provide public funding for amenities. So that's consistent with that. But really, to me, this is all a lot of bureaucratic statements and so forth. But the next two are what's the most important. In your park and rec master plan, it calls for, and this is in 2012, it calls for the development of 8 neighborhood parks. You might have 2. You've got Town Creek, which is not a fully developed park, and maybe the clustering of recreation amenities in the downtown area. Outside of that, you have no neighborhood parks. You've got some athletic fields and some athletic facilities, but that is not defined as a neighborhood park. That's something different. And in addition to that, as I stated earlier, in the Park and Rec Master Plan, it calls for the development of a neighborhood park right at this location, north of Kensington Drive on Waxhaw Marvin Road, specifically. It's got a map, it's got a star on it. This is where a 10-acre park is called for. So this all lines up with what the town's policies, stated policies, are. So final property exchange agreement. So the town, within the agreement here, so here are some of the highlights. The town would exchange 12 acres of its property for plus or minus 12 acres for plus or minus 9 acres back from Trayton Homes. So a net loss of 3 acres. Initially, it was going to be 12 acres for 7 with a net loss of 5. We were able to negotiate picking up some additional property for trail development along Waxhaw that would be able to be accessed along Waxhaw Marvin Road. So it's a net loss of 3 acres. In addition to that, Trayton Homes would be required to make a cash payment of $636,000, and the concept there is for that money to be rolled into the development of a neighborhood park. In addition to that, properties to the north and south of the 34 acres, current 34 acres, would be annexed. So that was us incentivizing the annexation to secure that. In addition to that, we would pick up some additional open space and road frontage along Waxhaw Marvin Road to give the park a higher profile along Waxhaw Marvin Road. Again, additional opportunities for trail development and connectivity. And the developer would be required to make significant roadway improvements to Waxhaw Marvin Road. One of the things that the town we need to understand is if we were to go it alone in developing this 34 acres, the brick entranceway with the wrought iron fence and the tree-lined driveway would go away, because that's where we'd have to enter the park. That would become a roadway and not a walkway, which is what it would be used for. Having the developer make improvements to Waxhaw Marvin Road, we'd be able to access the property at a different location, specifically off of the road they would build into their development, again, saving the town money for infrastructure improvements. In addition to that, the developer would be required to provide plus or minus 60 additional parking spaces along their residential roadway, which would mitigate the need for us to have a large parking lot, which would be good because we could use more of that for developing park amenities. So they would have quite a few infrastructure improvements they would need to make as a part of this agreement, and those are all requirements on them. And those improvements, per the agreement, would have to be made within 1 year, and per the agreement would be backed by performance and payment bonds or a letter of credit. So what happens is, we go to closing, they have their performance and payment bonds or letter of credit, they have their $636,000. If they don't have that, we don't close. Let's say they have all the instruments that are needed. We move forward with closing. Let's say they don't make the improvements within 1 year. We cash in the bond or the letter of credit and make the improvements ourselves to move forward with developing the park. Does that make sense? Okay. So the definition of a neighborhood park. So what are we talking about in developing?
Just a curiosity
Yeah.
question. So I get the performance and payment bonds. That's separate and distinct from the $636,000 in cash, which can be used to start the development
Correct.
of
That's
the 10-acre park.
correct. That'd be in addition to. Correct.
I think in looking at the agreement, you also have clause 10, paragraph 10, where if they fail to perform within the first year, you have the option also of buying the property back for how much?
Correct. You want to?
Yes, we put in the agreement that part of the material aspect of this for the town was development of this. The main thing is the bond or letter of credit, because whatever happens, you can cash that, you get it, you move forward, and this property will get developed. But the other would be if they just stop and do nothing, if they haven't commenced within a year, which would be a shock and a surprise, but then you could go on it and say you wish to exercise the option that will be recorded in the chain of title and repurchase the property.
For how much?
I'm sorry, $10.
$10. We keep the 636?
Yes. I mean,
That's a little.
when that was put in there, it was evidence to me that there was motivation for this to occur, that and the bond for the protection.
So we feel like the town is thoroughly protected. I mean, we've heard what the public comment and others about Triton pulling out. We will have financial instruments in place that protect the town.
Yeah.
Okay. Or we won't move forward with closing.
Correct.
Definition of a neighborhood park. So again, your Park and Rec Master Plan calls for the development of a 10-acre park, which we were at a deficit at town-wide at this specific location. And neighborhood parks are defined as about 10 acres in size, and that's what we would propose be developed in the first phase of this, the front 10 acres of this property. They're generally connected to a town-wide greenway system, and we provide opportunities for that throughout. You will have unprogrammed multi-purpose open space, much like you have at Town Creek Park, that sort of open space for families and whatnot. An internal path system, picnic and seating areas, children's play area and playground, shaded area and green spaces, pedestrian scale lighting for safety and security, and some public parking. In addition, at this site, we would like, obviously the pond is going to be a central feature. And we've talked about a fishing pier potentially at that location. And I'll leave you just where we started. Go ahead.
You haven't mentioned, if this should pass, still the discussions ongoing going with Union County Public
Yeah.
School and the rest of the land being used as a high school certified
thank you.
cross-country.
I didn't put that in, but that's a great point. So you've got the 10 acres up front, then you'll have about 20 acres on the back side that could be developed for trail purposes. That would be a second phase. And currently in Union County, this side of Union County, there is no good cross-country venue. So we've talked with Union County about the potential of partnering with them to develop a cross-country venue for our middle school and high school kids from Parkwood, Cuthbertson, and Marvin Ridge.
And I believe you also talked with St. Matthew, and they said they would be
Yes.
willing to use
So,
the parking over there.
Yeah, so if they had an event, let's say that's what came to pass with this in an additional phase, and they had an event, we've talked to St. Matt's, and they said they would be glad to accommodate us in terms of additional parking needs that might occur for a cross-country event. So, go ahead.
One more thing, there were a couple comments tonight about erosion and sediment control. At this point, the town of Waxhaw has no authority to help anyone with erosion and sediment control enforcement
Outside our town limits.
outside our town limits. What happens when we annex it?
Well, they would be under our rules and regulations, and if you recall, we just took that program over within the last month from the state of North Carolina. So that's, so Mayor, what you had mentioned in terms of a cross-country venue with trails on the back, that would be an additional, that would be a separate phase. Again, we would focus on the front end. And we would also go through a public input process where this is conceptual. This is what could, something just as a, something to think about. But we'd like to engage, if all this were to come to pass, we'd like to engage the public and get input on some amenities they would like to see.
Questions for Manager Wood? Other additional questions? Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I would just like to make a note that the motion to approve the exchange of the property and have the town manager go forward with it was my motion, and that the proceeds from the property, the exchange property, was going to go into parks, and it's going to go into that park, not into other parks, but that park. That was the attachment I put on that motion.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Stewart?
I have some questions. On the plat, the old plat, in comparison to the new plat, there's figures that are different. Could you explain that? I'm looking at this also in your, there's 60 plus or minus spaces, and I see on this new plat, there's only 45 parking spaces.
If I may, once we start getting into the specifics of the plans, great questions, and they should be answered. I know that this is generalizations about concepts.
Those
Let's-
are handled in each of the separate sections, correct?
I believe so, and we'll also have one of our planners who's been studying that a lot more than one. I think that would be, but they do need to be answered. It'd be better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have no public hearings tonight. We are now moving on to H1, old business. Action on Trayton Homes Voluntary Annexation Petition 18-219. This is a request by Trayton Homes LLC for annexation of approximately 43.45 acres, consisting of the parcels mentioned, located on Waxhaw Marvin Road. This has been in front of us, public hearings, et cetera. Lisa, are you on point for this? Or Nish, Lisa, Nish, do you have any additional information that you,
Not regarding the annex.
not regarding the annexation? Okay. If not, then any further discussion? Motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annexation and bring it into the town limits and extend the town limits thereof.
Okay, so we have a motion, if I can paraphrase you, to adopt the ordinance extending the corporate limits of the town of Waxhaw as described in the proposed annexation ordinance, 2016-019, to be effective December 6, 2016. We have that motion on the table by Commissioner Fitzgerald. Any further discussion?
I have a comment. I just want to make it clear for the record that normally I am for voluntary annexation, and have, except for a couple exceptions, and have reasoning and documentation of why I would not. On this one, I feel that it's a bad precedent to set, because in other annexations, we have not offered anyone any deal or any type of thing like this, other than our great services that we have with police, fire, with leaf vacuuming, garbage, all of those things, street protection, everything else, street maintenance. And I think those services that we offer should be enough for a developer to want to come into our town without asking for something else.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to state in response to that, though, I mean, an annexation is really disconnected from the remainder of it. We can annex them, and something can change tomorrow, and it's still annexed. It's here once we annex it, correct?
Correct.
To me, it's a no-brainer.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 3-1. Okay, next item is item H2, action on Trayton Homes rezoning petition CD 004744-2016. This is a request by Trayton Homes LLC for conditional rezoning / map amendment from R1 single-family residential Waxhaw and R40 single-family residential Union County to a conditional district single-family plan residential development on the acres described in the application. A single-family residential subdivision in Town Park is proposed for the site. Lisa,
Okay.
while this has been in front of us, I'm sure you have some additional information you wish to share.
I do. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the site. It's off Waxhaw Marvin Road, and it's just north of the existing Oak Grove Estates that's in Union County. I wanted to go over the changes since the public hearing. Since that time, a Town of Waxhaw agreement to joinder has been added to the original application. All references to town obligations, construction type, and trail placement were removed. Trail construction details were removed. All references to park development agreements were removed. Trail notes were revised to state the proposed trail is for conceptual depiction only. And the park acreage has been extended. I'll turn it to this so you can see. It was a little further out into this area, so they put it back up towards the lots to give more space for the park. The proposed open space was updated, since that gave us more open space, to 25.47 acres, which is 51%. And then the tree save was updated to say that 8.95 was provided and that 7.65 acres were required. And the right-of-way proposed was updated to reflect 5.5 acres for internal tree save calculations, and total internal site area was updated to say 38.28 acres. Staff recommends approval of the conditional district rezoning as revised and submitted December 5th, 2016, with the following conditions which are shown on the plan. There shall be at least or no less than 29 acres for the town park. Development and use of the town park is at the sole discretion of the Town of Waxhaw. Trail locations are schematic and only depict potential placement of a trail system. Architectural elevations and the attached pictures are submitted for the purpose of illustrating the design characteristics and quality of single-family detached homes, which shall meet or exceed the quality, feature, and representation set forth herein. Additional home designs must be approved by the zoning administrator. All detached single-family residential homes shall have a minimum of 2,300 heated square feet for the 50-foot wide lots and 2,800 square feet for the 60-foot lots. Infrastructure along Lacey Oak Drive shall be completed by early 2018. At their October 17th Planning Board meeting, the Planning Board voted unanimously to send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. And so tonight, the action requested would be either a motion to approve or deny the petition and a statement of reasonableness and consistency. And the applicant is here to answer any questions, and I'm able to answer any questions.
Discussion, questions? Commissioner Stewart.
Can you explain to me again, the 60 spaces going down to 45 spaces for parking?
They should not have changed their parking in the most recent update.
On this one? It's on this one. On the handout tonight for the manager's report, it's 45 spaces.
Yeah, on their plans it's saying 60, and if you wanted additional assurance, you could make that a condition. But on the most recent plans, it is.
I'm looking at the manager report. That's the first time I had noticed 45 spaces.
Right here. It says 60 here.
it's a total of how many spaces?
They would do the 60, and then our parking lot, I mean, again, this is conceptual, and there's 40 spaces in there, I think there's about 30 at Town Creek Park, just to give you an idea of the choose. And that'd be a town decision.
There's 22 at Town
Okay.
Creek Park.
You're obligated to what's on the plan.
So it's an additional. Okay, thanks, it's clear.
Commissioner Burrow?
I'd like to make the motion to approve petition CD 004744-2016.
Chaplain?
A point of clarification, we talked about the different plans, and those are with the plans as amended and presented tonight, and maybe belts and suspenders, but also include the bullet points of the staff recommendations. Would you like to include those by reference?
That's fine, Chaplain. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it's these plans that you have in your packet, so they have been amended as of December 5th, and they include all of those staff recommendations, which are also included. I just want to clarify. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
So we have a motion to approve the petition with the updated December 6th packet of information, basically, or packet of application. Okay. We have a motion on the table. Further discussion? Okay, with no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed 3-1. In addition, we need the additional motion to, for consistency and reasonableness, that the zoning petition is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future planning goals of the town of Waxhaw. It is reasonable and in the public interest as it will allow for a 71-lot planned residential development that will provide an urban scale density that is in contrast to the typical suburban development regulations that have been applied by Union County neighboring communities as recommended by the Waxhaw Comprehensive Plan for the G3 intended growth sector.
So moved.
Okay, we have that motion on the table for reasonableness and consistency. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That passes 3-1 as well. Okay, next item up, H3. Action on Trayton Homes subdivision petition SUB 004852-2016. This is a request by applicant John Freezer with Trayton Homes LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan on approximately 49.6 acres as defined in the application, located half-mile north of Kensington Drive and Waxhaw Road intersection. The development will contain 71 single-family lots. And again, Lisa McCarter will give us an update.
Okay, the changes are identical to the ones made in the conditional district zoning plan. Although conditions can't be placed on a subdivision, all the changes are reflected. So staff recommends approval, and the planning board recommended unanimous approval at their October 17th, 2016 regular meeting. So the requested action is to make a motion to approve or deny the petition as most recently submitted on December 5th.
Okay, so we have that information. Discussion, comments, motions,
I'd like to make the motion to
I'd
approve.
like to make a comment, please.
comment from Commissioner Stewart.
I just want to say that many people have contacted me, and the biggest thing that they have told me is, and I'm repeating what they're saying, that the 34 acres is property that the taxpayers paid for, $1.6 million. That's a lot of money that was saved, and I know it was years ago that it happened, but that was their money that was set aside for this property. And with the growth of Waxhaw, and this is an important point that they've told me, with the growth of Waxhaw, and I think Manager Wood, 2,700 more homes are going to come into Waxhaw, and probably most of those homes will be young families. That's what we're trying to get here, millennials, young families with children, starting their families, or 2, 3, even 4 children. And their idea is this 34 acres in its entirety will be needed for who's already here and for the 2,700 homes that are going to be full of people in the future, in the very near future, that this piece of property in its entirety would be a wonderful place, a big place, not interrupted by houses and trails and those kinds of things that they feel like would be best in its entirety. So I've listened to them and I've heard them, and I agree with them that this is not, again, a precedent that we should be setting as a board, in my opinion, to deal with developers and make a deal like this to take the heart out of this piece of property in exchange for land that is not buildable for him, not usable for him. And the middle of this park is very usable, and the tree canopy for a wonderful park. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I value your opinion and your honesty on that, Brenda, or Ms. Stewart.
Well, it's the people's opinion that
Okay,
have
your
talked to
people's
me.
opinion, okay. We paid approximately $1.4 million. We're gonna get back by trading out 3 acres, half of it almost, $636,000. So that's a hell of a profit, excuse my French, but I think there's a hell of a profit per acre on that we are gaining. Plus, we have the availability to actually open a park in Waxhaw. That's exciting to me. I don't know about you, but that's exciting to me, that we would have the money to actually do it. We've been talking about parks. I ran for parks, and since we have not been able to open a park, and now we have the advantage of possibly open a park, and it would be a 31-acre park, not a 10-acre park, which was in the Park and Rec's master plan, but a 31-acre park. That's a fantastic big park, big passive areas that we would have benefit for the whole town. It's not, it is considered a neighborhood park, but everybody in the town owns that. Everybody in the county can come to that park. Anybody in this whole Charlotte region can come to that park, and they'd be glad to come to that park. And for that, I would like to make motion to approve SUB 004852-2016.
So thank you for your French, and thank you for, and we now have a motion on the table to approve petition SUB 004852-2016 based upon the current zoning of the site and surrounding developments. Discussion.
And this is also as amended and presented from tonight's, the newer plan. Thank you.
Correct, thank you. Discussion.
I will say again, it isn't, and I agree with Commissioner Fitzgerald, it is a great park, and it would be a much greater park in its entirety without making a deal with a developer and setting this precedent that people are upset about. They're not upset about the 31 acres. They're upset about making a deal with a developer and setting a precedent as we move forward.
I'm going to offer up a comment here. So, because I was upset on the board when we actually authorized you to move forward on this. I've heard pros and cons. To me, the unfortunate situation here is we have a piece of property that's been sitting idle, and we have no idea how the heck we will ever be able to use it under our current budget. That's a crime in and of itself. It's locked up, and it's not usable. And we've looked at every which way, and we have not been able to come up with any budgetary way to get at that park, the downtown park, any park. The situation that's in front of us offers not $636,000. That's the starter set. It offers the road improvements, which We would have to pay for an additional $250,000. It allows the park to be open within 15 months, roughly speaking. Right? That's for the 10 acres. Probably the insight that I would add, it actually is doing something that shows that the town of Waxhaw learned a very valuable lesson that my subdivision lives through. We lived under the old ordinances where you put common area out there, and we have a beautiful piece of land that we can't use because it's sitting in the middle of nowhere with no parking. The football field that sits in Prescott. And the Town Creek Park was thought of afterwards as to how to improve it. So while there's lots of opinion here, and I respect them all, is there something funny? I mean, seriously, we're having a discussion here. We have listened to everybody. We've heard Chaplin weigh in that we have covered every legal base. He's our attorney. We trusted him 2 weeks ago. We're trusting him tonight. That's the way it is, folks. We hired him. He's our town attorney. While I don't have a vote, unless it's a tie, I am fully supportive of this because of the lessons that we've learned from here. We passed a comprehensive plan, 5-0, that said we would work with development to incentivize annexation. You guys have me going up to Raleigh on a quarterly basis to work with the state legislature to work with them on trying to figure out how we solve donut holes. We've got some legitimate problems. I thank the staff for taking the year to work this out to the best possible scenario for the town of Waxhaw. My comment, does anybody else have any other comments before we go to vote? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 3-1. Next item up is H4, which is actually the movement of the Town of Waxhaw ordinance granting conditional zoning approval from the consent agenda. Chaplain, this was the actual discussion of this and the voting on this occurred 2 weeks ago. And would you explain what this piece is to the legislative process for us?
Yes, this follows our written decisions that we also use on our conditional use permits. With the conditional zoning, since there are a lot of different conditions, we bring an ordinance later to make sure we get them all included. So you've already approved the zoning. This is to document it, and also allows us, back in the early 2000s, it was harder. We had to go back to the minutes sometimes to find what the plans were and what everything was. This puts everything on one page.
So this is required.
This is required, but one thing I can do to improve is I can try to bring these so it is approved with the night of. We just may have to amend it and change it or give you authorization to sign, because I'm not always going to know all of the conditions. Like staff brought in conditions today, so I wouldn't be able to have this in a packet beforehand. But I can try to bring those in the future, the night of. And I can also put on here how it passed, like a 3-1 vote or a 4-0 vote, 5-0 vote, if that would assist. But you do need to pass it. This is already approved by this board. This documents it and gets it in our files. So
It's the paperwork.
It's the paperwork. This is already a done deal.
All right. So with that, I'll, any further discussion or entertain a motion to adopt the necessary paperwork for the ordinance granting conditional zoning.
So moved.
Have a motion, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion pass 3-1. On to new business. The initiation of voluntary annexation petition 18-220 for St. Matthew Church. This is a request by Joe F. Dodge on behalf of St. Matthew Church for annexation of approximately 1.38 acres, consisting of the parcel indicated, located at 8622 Kensington Drive at the existing St. Matthew location. We have all the information in the packet. Do you have additional comments that you want to make? Okay. And you recommend the motion to initiate the process? Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution directing the town clerk to investigate annexation petition 18-220.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it, 4-0. Town Clerk Schuler, can you verify that the petition was investigated and is sufficient?
Yes, I do verify that the petition was investigated and is
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution scheduling the public hearing for January 10th, 2017, and we'll make sure it gets into the Enquirer Journal. I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Stewart. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have it 4-0. With no further topics, I will remind everybody that our meeting, we will have a meeting in 2 weeks. It will start at 6 p.m. We are having that meeting. It was necessitated because of a glitch at the Enquirer Journal where they didn't get a notice published on time, and while the state law does not require it, we wanted to be safe per our UDO, and so we are handling the public hearing for the soccer field that was on tonight's agenda that we had to move, and that will occur at 6 o'clock 2 weeks from tonight. So with that, meeting adjourned.